I've recently watched some content where people were advocating for the virtue of having a good sense of humor and not taking yourself super self seriously. That sounds stupid. Uh, but anyway, that's what they were saying. Uh, Not taking yourself too seriously, obnoxiously seriously, comically seriously, uh, unjustly seriously. Anyway, that's what they were elaborating on the virtue of not doing, not doing. And I think that is a great thing, but lest it people misconstrue that message and take it too far, I think this uh, essay should also be a helpful little pushback just to make sure, okay, people don't go and jump into the dreadful, dingy ditch of flippancy, That curse. Anyway, so first I'll read a little essay I wrote about the importance of being earnest. It's not a book. This is not a book review of the importance by being. Oh my goodness! This is not a book review of the importance of being earnest by Oscar Wilde. Although it is a good book, so I guess this just became a tiny little book review. That section was a book review, so. But most of the video won't be a book review. This is just an essay that I titled the same because I thought it would be funny. Okay, it's funny, okay? Anyway, yeah, speaking of being funny, you might think, hey, how do I have any right to speak on the importance of being earnest? Well, I don't know. So, but you're here, so you might as well listen to me read through this anyway. Because, yeah, frankly, flippancy is something I contend with. And it's nice that that fan turned off. Flippancy is a temptation I have to contend with, maybe not daily, because, sometimes I'm just depressed. But other times it is an error that comes up into my periphery and has to be battled with. So this is just an admonition to not take. Weirdly enough, sorry, I gotta say this, but this is not okay. Earnestness and self-seriousness are over here, and jokes and flippancy are over here. No, flippancy and self-seriousness are often more aligned with each other than being earnest and jokes are. Having a good sense of humor is also knowing when to turn that off. It's a good sense of humor. It's not an omnipresent sense of humor. Flippancy and self-seriousness. Flippancy is really the vice of thinking everything else is funny, but you aren't. Most people who are flippant aren't flippant about themselves. They take themselves very seriously, but not anybody else. They're like, oh, that guy's, hey, did you see him? Because, and they're willing to crack jokes about anything else in the universe except for their own fragile little ego. And so I think I highlight that distinction in here somewhere. But this is not, and I just want to make it clear, this is not advocating being self-serious. I hates it. The kind of guys that walk around like this. Yo, I'm the hottest thing on earth and also the coolest thing on earth. That might be oxymoronic, but I'm just moronic. Yeah, no oxyness to it at all. Anyway, we should get started. I've blabbed for long enough. Enough dithering, let's get to it. A man being a wet sack of mush. I messed it up already. A man being a wet sack of sentimental mush is contemptible. Everyone where turns, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, no lack of such foppery is to be found. And when reasonable people see others cultivating the bratty wildness of their unbridled emotion, they can easily ricochet, turning into emotive germaphobes. I'm sorry, guys. Even with glasses, my vision is not telescopic. This is far away, laddies. People can easily ricochet away from bratty wildness to being emotive germaphobes, not wanting to delve into that. The Matt Walsh ditch has become a favorite. Instead of trying to both inculcate and defend legitimate occasions for emotion, rinse everything down in the far more easy alternative flippancy. Ketchup pairs with McDonald's French fries, so put it on filet mignon in tomato soup and in your communion wine. Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. Flippancy is to emotion kind of what skepticism is to philosophy. Absolutely necessary, but no answer at all. Interacting with someone can be beyond wearing if they limit their responses to everything to the cheap ketchup of being flippant contemptive. It's exasperating, maddening. It is easy to fall into. Vulnerability is tough to execute without discomfiting all living things nearby. But it's also a tough word to defend, so let's toss that cigarette out of the window and strike another match. Displaying a legitimate and biblically defensible emotion publicly hurts. It's scraping the epidermis off your soul and bearing it raw to the salty spittle of any passerby hurts. I think I've used that image in a previous video, but it's a good one. It's a good one. Lock it away. Spittle, epidermis, scrape. At various moments in life, I've seen this play executed to perfection. A joke that lands may leave a mark on the memory, but sharing the yoke of one of life's heavy moments leaves a bleeding hole in the soul. You carry its scar to your grave. Now, heretofore, crazy word, we have sparred with the idea of flippancy, but remember that humor and even snarkiness and flippancy are not excluded from appropriate displays of emotion. I think I might change that term around. Whatever. They're not excluded from appropriate displays of emotion. They cannot permanently supplant the whole spectrum of feeling. An ounce of humor in a stiff commercial landscape can land like a thunderclap of humanity, and the echoes of the Imago Dei may hang heavily in the air. That is how it landed 7 years ago at the Mock Trial State Championship in the Supreme Court of Idaho. Okay, I'm about to go on a little detour where I just emphasize the importance of humor, and even humor, especially when it's not expected or maybe even unwanted. So it was my first year on Logos Mock Trial Team. Also, I might be putting out a video soon about mock trial and my experience with it and how to be a good all-star witness that wins awards and things. So stay tuned for that if you care about me. It was my first year on Logos's mock trial team, and from a favorable impression made at the auditions, I became one of 3 freshmen then to ever make the varsity team. Greener than the first astronaut to disprove the moon being made of cheese, because illness. I was truly ignorant, but something seemed to work. After rounds of struggle, of sweat, of slicing testimonies apart, our varsity team had burrowed its way into the heart of the Idahoan Supreme Court. The state championship round is held in the Supreme Court of Idaho in Boise, which is pretty neat, pretty crazy. Actual justices from the Supreme Court preside as like the jury and the actual judge. So it's high stakes, boys. It's high stakes. For an hour and a half, I spectated deft legal thrusts and riposte. Fencers get on my booty, waiting for myself to be called as the last witness to give his testimony. Dry attorneys had pressed antagonistic witnesses on hidden details of their affidavits and had other quotes from the case materials lobbed back. With that heady surreality that accompanies the wilder safaris of life, I waded through shallow breaths to the witness stand. Throwing myself down in the chair, I shot a wide, boyish grin out into the empty vastness of the court and smirked my character's name for the court with startling aggression. Just like we rehearsed, I moseyed slickly through my direct examination. Almost slickly. Yeah, I'm not that good. With my drunken boxing approach to trial preparation, yeah, I was lazy. That's all I'm saying. Staggering was inevitable, but also covered with a joke both so in character and so stupid that for the first time in who knows how long, laughter washed through the cold legal room. Uh, yeah, I made the whole court laugh. In the Supreme Court, it was a wild time. It was a really bad joke, though. It was really dumb. Then came the cross examination, and were there not video records, I would still have no idea what I said. The pressure cookery of the prying attorney's inquisition so thoroughly deep fried my brain that immediately after stepping away from the stand, I knew not what words had escaped the indiscriminating airlock of my teeth. Having rewatched events, my verdict is that my answers stank worse than my armpits. They were, in fact, bad. I was fairly thoroughly bullied by the attorney and missed just about all of my counters. I played the part of the ignorant freshman well. Yeah. After the closing statements, the justices flattered both sides, but there would only be one winner. Ambrose took the title that year, and we lost. Such news tends to kick in your heart like 400 milligrams of caffeine and swell both tongue and bruised pride like an enraged zit. For all my flounderings in the state championship for Idaho's mock trial, the judges awarded me outstanding witness of the whole round, and Ambrose did as well. How can that be? Were the judges stupid? Was Ambrose stupid? Were their brains collectively tapping out after 2 hours of fake legal arguments? Or like my brain after turning on this stupid phone camera? Oh, man. Was it one more instance of miscarriage of justice in that room? Am I wrong in characterizing my testimony as bad? No, dear reader or viewer, no. I had, for the first time in my life, learned the cosmological importance of being earnest, adjective not proper noun. By simply allowing my personality to kick like a mule without sanctification, I bent the affections of my audience to harbor toward me more grace than they did to people who either tried too hard to win or are just mind-witheringly dry. By sharing a laugh with my cross-examining attorney, I had managed to come off as more than a hateful, spoiled kid, which is what I actually am, who pretentiously practices fake law because of how it strokes his ego and heightens his sense of adulthood. In that moment, humor was the risk, the vulnerable thing to do. So humor and flippancy are actually not, this, whatever the turd this is. They're not that. In that moment, humor was the risk, the vulnerable thing to do, the thing that puts yourself out there, the thing that further humanized me than others. Weird. Just try and rock with it. Emotions should not be played with any more than nitroglycerin. But just because bad people have done bad things with dynamite doesn't mean categorically outlawing its usage is an effective way to advance through life and technology and and things and dogs. Matt Walsh is more often than not correct with his diagnoses of culture. He's the more I see of him, though, he's actually less. I would be less and less inclined to relegate him to just being flippant all the time. He actually has some pretty good stuff, especially his bigger media, like his movies. They're pretty. They actually have those 1-2 punches of humor, then uppercut with a stinking tearjerker story about some kid detransitioning or something. Anyway, Matt Walsh is more often than not correct with his diagnoses of culture, but he provides a far less winning and appealing persona for the conservative movement than Michael Knowles, or at least for the kind of people we should want to attract to the truth. No one is actually attracted to a personality. Just because I said this after Matt Walsh doesn't mean I'm attacking him right here. No one is actually attracted to a personality that busies itself with cutting everyone else down as a way of lifting itself up. You can certainly be attracted to the cool status afforded by that sort of petty cruelty, but this is being attracted to a hand grenade. Can it destroy your enemies? Indubitably. But if you are closer to it than they are, ellipses, ellipsis, ellipses. I've seen people so addicted to being a passionless cucumber that they indiscriminately start taking shots at good qualities of good things, the good qualities of good things, as opposed to flicking the pride of good things. And and try to engender parallel feelings in anyone else as cravenly needy as to laugh along with their inappropriate snark. It isn't admirable to lack any passion. It isn't admirable to avoid defending those passions. A man who does not defend or provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever, and committing the same sin in microcosm is no less hypocritically treacherous. 1 Timothy 5:8. If apathy and flippancy are virtues, they are not ones found in martyrs. Martyrs don't die with flippancy and apathy. No, they die because of love of something. Avoiding emotion is often laziness. The laziness of avoiding maturing your self-control. Never failing to break a stallion is easy if you shun horses, but professional wranglers ache in their old age. Yeah, that's one more Dry Creek Wrangler reference on this YouTube channel, dog. Executing appropriate emotion appropriately at an appropriate time is not simply good. It is an inestimable weapon in winning and edifying and uplifting souls. Both stoicism and flippancy are instances that slot into the former sentence's formula, but an exclusive diet of either leaves a soul so malnourished that it cannot unironically find the grace, mercy, and peace of the Holy Spirit in singing carols at Christmas. It has to be flip. Always. A soul so unaccustomed to being... Don't say pause. A soul so unaccustomed to being intimately touched shies fragilely away from that crushing weight of glory. Ironic. People project a falsely masculine apathy so often that the scaffolding underneath this husk of a personality rots and hollows until you could push a crippling hole into it with your thumb. I've been there. I might still be. I might be that little husk of a man that, you could just crush my freaking ego's skull in with a single thumb, because I've dwelt so long in the atrophic miasma of flippancy. Love, and love infectiously, radiate a joy so potent that its fumes either drive people away pinching their nose in disgust, or they can do nothing but breathe it in and share in its rapture. But we are so fragile that we are afraid to be seen truly appreciating something or someone. Men fear being called gay from being, vulnerable, and are deterred from loving with testosterone. Die for what you love. Be a man takes snide criticisms from people so gray and flavorless they compulsively tear you down for unapologetically living with Solomonic passion. Don't trivialize things better men have written sonnets on. So that's the essay. Yeah, Solomonic passion. Something that bothers me is Christians who get uncomfies when they read the Song of Solomon. It's like, come on, man. This is also part of the Bible. Lean into it. Enjoy it. Cram it down your throat. Cram it in your mouth. Yeah, some of the turns of speech are not ones that we are used to. But maybe that's just because, like I say, we're atrophied. Okay, now I'm going to read something that's going to blow my essay out of the water. It's a couple paragraphs from C.S. Lewis's The Screw Tape Letters, where he talks about where Screw Tape talks about how you can tempt somebody toward flippancy and being too jokey to the point of, being too jokey. Okay, stop putting pressure on me to perform, man. Let me just read this, and then we'll be done. It'll be okay. Just make it. We can do this together, buddy. Come on. Don't click off the video, dog. All right, Screw Tape. The real use of jokes or humor is in quite a different direction, and it is specially promising among the English, who take their sense of humor so seriously that a deficiency in this sense is almost the only deficiency at which they feel shame. Humor is for them the all-consoling, and mark this, the all-excusing grace of life. Hence it is invaluable as a means of destroying shame. If a man simply lets others pay for him, he is mean. If he boasts of it in a jocular manner and twits his fellows with having been scored off, he is no longer mean, but a comical fellow. Mere cowardice is shameful. Cowardice boasted of with humorous exaggerations and grotesque gestures. Is he getting at me? I should turn this off. Grotesque gestures can be passed off as funny. Cruelty is shameful unless the cruel man can represent it as a practical joke. 1,000 bawdy or even blasphemous jokes do not help towards a man's damnation so much as his discovery that almost anything he wants to do can be done, not only without the disapproval, but with the admiration of his fellows, if only it can get itself treated as a joke. And this temptation can be almost entirely hidden from your patient by the English seriousness about humor. Any suggestion that there might be too much of it can be represented to him as puritanical or as betraying a lack of humor. But flippancy is the best of all. In the first place, it is very economical. Only a clever human can make a real joke about virtue, or indeed about anything else. Any of them can be trained to talk as if virtue, sorry, I let the American in. Any of them can be trained to talk as if virtue were funny. Among flippant people, the joke is always assumed to have been made. No one actually makes it, but every serious subject is discussed in a manner which implies that they have already found a ridiculous side to it. If prolonged, the habit of flippancy builds up around a man the finest armor plating against the enemy that I know, and it is quite free from the dangers inherent in the other sources of laughter. It is 1,000 miles away from joy. It deadens instead of sharpening the intellect, and it excites no affection between those who practice it. Your affectionate uncle, Screw Tape. So, yeah, he just blew me out of the water. I mean, he did in 2 paragraphs what I did with a ton of your time. I just wasted your time. Oh, yes, I've got Screw Tape in my body now. So, embrace being earnest. Legitimately inquire into people's values and history and stuff, and don't always diffuse any sort of emotional tension with a joke at good things' expense.